everyone. Today's card is the Nature's Harvest card number 2, and we're going to make a gatefold card. So I've started with the petal pink and it's cut at 8.5 by 5.5, and we're going to score each side at 2 1/8. So I'm going to put it in the paper trimmer, and each of these little lines is a 16th, so we need the second line after the number 2, and that one is 2 1/8. Now you can turn the card round, line it up again at 2 1/8 and score, or what you can also do is just have the one score line, fold the card in, and then use this right hand side piece and fold it right up to the left hand side flap, and that way you know you get it dead on. I always use a bone folder as well, just to go over like this. Okay, so that's the basic card shape that we need, and it's still the same size. It fits in a medium envelope, but it just has these little folds on the front instead. And we're going to use one of the designer series papers from the Nature's Harvest set, and I've chosen this one. Now the paper doesn't have the petal pink in it, but I think it's a really pretty subtle combination. Okay. So when you put these little pieces of paper on, just make sure that your pattern matches. It's awkward if you have it suddenly, oh, I can't tell on that piece, but you know, if you have it suddenly down here and it's offset, it doesn't work quite so well. So those two pieces we're just going to attach to those front flaps. And I'm using stamping seal, but you can use liquid glue, you could use tear and tape, whatever you wanted. I'm just checking that this is the right way. Yep. And you will just have a small border all the way around. And then the same with this one. Just going to attach it. Oops, come on, stamping seal. I'm going to get my silicone mat out, because that way I can just run it over a little bit. I don't have to keep getting adhesive on my fingers. Check that's the right pattern. Yeah, and that way it just looks better. There we go. So that's the front done. I want to do something for the inside, and for that we use the white piece that's cut at 5 1/4 by 4, and it just fits perfectly in there, but I'm going to do some stamping on it first. I've got my little piece of scratch paper, and I've got the largest flower image from the set, and I'm going to use early espresso, but I don't want it to be too dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp on my scratch paper and then onto my inside card, because you might want to write over that part. So just inking that up, and I'm going to have a quick look and check that it's all inked. I'm going to stamp once on here, and then once, oops, let's move that round, once for my card. And it will be much lighter, but still really pretty. Okay, and while I've got this out, I'm actually going to stamp the front of the card. And for the front of the card you need this little piece, which is cut from the Stitch So Sweetly dies, just onto basic white. Excuse me. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to ink up my stamp. I'm going to stamp off once, and then I'm going to stamp onto this. And you should be able to get most of the flower image on. Okay, and then while I'm also here, I'm going to get my envelope, and I'm going to use the third generation stamping, or just use this same one again and pop it over the envelope. Just like that. So it'll be much, much lighter, but you will be able to write over that if you need to do your address over it or anything. Okay, so let's find my chamois. Where's it gone? Here we go. I'm just going to clean that stamp because we don't need it again. Oh, still a little bit of ink on there. There we are. Let's pop that one away. But I am going to do some more stamping while we've got the ink out. And for the next piece, you need this little cork speciality paper. And I've cut it with this die, which is perfect for these longer sentiments in the stamps. But I'm actually not going to use that one. I want to make a happy birthday card, so I'm going to use a different stamp. That's the die we've used. And the paper is the speciality paper. It looks like cork, but it's actually just a thinner, like a designer series paper. And it's quite easy to stamp on. So I've got a happy birthday sentiment, and that's from Artistically Inked. But use any sentiment that you've got. And I'm just going to lay it straight on this little piece of scratch paper. I'm going to ink it up. I'm not going to stamp off with this, so I want it to be quite dark. And I'm going to stamp right in the middle. Just going to hold it for a second or two, just because this paper is a little bit more absorbent with it having that cork on it. Okay. I'm not terribly happy with that. I'm going to stamp it again. And I'm going to stand up to stamp this time so that I can see a little bit better. And let's ink that up. And I'm going to move it down into my vision. Just hold it for a second or two. That's better. You just don't always have good vision when you've got the camera above you. So there we go. Let's clean that stamp off as well. And I'm going to put that one back because it goes in a different set. There we are. Okay, so now we can do our colouring. And I've chosen colours that are in the paper. So I've chosen the Cajun Craze and the Soft Succulent, but I wanted a bit of a lighter colour as well. The yellow in the paper is actually Bumblebee, but it's a little bit darker than I want. So I've actually got my So Saffron out. You can use watercolour crayons, you could use marker pens, you can use your blends, lots of different things that you could try. I'm using the light Cajun Craze, and I'm just colouring the centres on the two larger flowers. And that's all. I'm going to use the light So Saffron for the petals. I don't want it to be too overpowering. I still want to be able to see the backing paper. So that designer series paper is pretty. I don't want to cover it all up. And I want it to pull the colours from the paper. I'm only doing a very rough colouring. I'm not doing lots of shading. I'm really just using the basic colours. Let's turn it around a bit more. Okay, so that's finished with the yellow. Let's pop that one back. And I'm going to use the Soft Succulent in the light as well. But you could use the dark, whichever colour you like best. It's a really quick and easy image to colour. You don't have to be, you know, too much of an artist. You don't have to cover over all of the white. You just need to have, you know, some colour in there. If you're using the blends and you go over the lines, you can use the colour lifter for small areas just to take that colour off. It wets the paper a little bit, so you don't want to do too big an area, as the paper just gets wet and you end up with a smudge. So you just, you know, just dab. Or if you have a white gel pen, you could use a gel pen too. Okay, I'm just going to move those out of the way. Okay, now let's find our sentiment. We're going to need that on here. I'm going to move the scratch paper and start to assemble the card. So this piece, if you wanted, you could colour in exactly the same as here. That would look really pretty. But let's quickly colour it so you can see how it would end up. If you want to fast forward till after I've finished colouring, that's fine. I'm only going to colour exactly the same as we did the first one. And this time I'm doing the brush end just because it's a bit faster. If I need to take my time, I usually use the bullet end of the blend pen, and you can get finer detail on that. But if you want to colour large areas and quickly, the brush end is usually best. And if you don't have the stamp set, there are lots of other floral sets that you could use. If you have some of the older sets, like the peony or the magnolia, that would work as well. And I've tried to use sort of colours that would work for any of your floral images. Quickly finish this leaf. If you're using blends, don't forget that they do bleed through the paper. So if you wanted it to be on a white base, then you would see it through the cardstock unless you have a second layer. If I'm colouring on white card and there's not a layer as well, then I'll use my watercolour pencils. Or I'll use my actual blender pen and ink from our ink pads. So if you turn it over, you can see that the colour does bleed through. So if this is the back of your card, it doesn't look so nice. But if it's on the inside of a card or on another layer, you can't see it. Pop some adhesive on here. Let's put some in the corners as well. And we'll get rid of that scratch paper now. And just make sure, yeah, that's the way I wanted it. So that gives you a pretty little inside to write on as well. Take off that little mark there. Okay. So for our gatefold card, we're going to attach this to the front, but we're only going to attach it to the left-hand side. If we attached all of it, you wouldn't be able to open your card. But if we just attach it at the left, then that means, you know, you've got your picture and your area to write. Now you can see on the back here that it does bleed through on this. If that's going to bother you, you can put another piece of card there. Let me just see. I do have another one. You do have 2 of these in your pack, so you could put it like this. Let's do that so you know. But if you've used watercolour pencils or something that doesn't show through, then you don't have to add this to the back. or you could put a piece of designer series paper on, that would look nice too. Okay, so I'm going to keep that right hand side flap open just so that I can sort of line up where my flower image is going to go. And I'm going to put adhesive on this side, and I'm going to use my liquid glue so that if I have to wiggle it round or move it, it's quicker and easier for me. I have tried also in the past putting my adhesive on here, but sometimes it's not quite in the place that I want it to be. So now I can close it up. I'm going to line it up so I've got the same border all the way around. Just press that down. I've got no adhesive showing here. And then last of all, I'm going to put on my little piece of cork speciality paper with our sentiment on. And I'm going to put it right across the bottom here. I'm going to use my tape to adhere it. If you wanted to use dimensionals, you could do that too. Now, this tape runner in this one has been really difficult to get to work each time. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's been sat in my craft room, which was really hot during the summer, and it's a bit stickier than normal. I'm not quite sure what it is. Okay, so I'm just going to line that up across. Let me see, I might just have it so that I can see a little bit of the stem at the other side as well. Press it on, and then I'm just going to use my glue eraser just to take this little bit of glue off here. That doesn't want to come off, or because it's still wet. I'm just going to wait till that dries and then I'll take it off. Okay, so there's our gatefold card. Really quick, really simple template, and an easy card to make. Thanks so much, everybody. See you for the next card. Bye-bye.